Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about the Iconians being in Star Trek Discovery Season 2, which I do think is very likely, and I'm going to go over all of it. First of all, for those who don't know, the Iconians were a species which was mentioned a few times in the various Star Trek series, but they were never actually shown. Only their technology was shown, and it was mentioned that they used to have an empire across the whole galaxy hundreds of thousands of years earlier. They were a very advanced species, and they were using very advanced gateways, which were basically kind of like the Stargate. They were kind of like the ancients in Stargate, the ones who built the Stargate system, and then they disappeared and the gates remained. So the same kind of story was in Star Trek, which was even before Stargate actually. So they show that there used to be an ancient alien species called the Iconians, who were called the demons of air and darkness because they could appear out of thin air anywhere they wanted. And in one episode of Season 2 of TNG, Picard actually found their homeworld, which was previously unknown. And because the Romulans also wanted to capture that technology, he had to destroy that whole place. And then later in Deep Space Nine, there was also an episode about some Jem'Hadar rebels who found a gateway of the Iconians. And once again, this time Captain Sisko had to destroy it so that it won't fall into the hands of the Dominion. And that's pretty much all in the shows. There was one small mention of that in Voyager, but it was a joke, so I disregard that. Tom Paris said something about they found an Iconian scientist who can bring them home, but it was a joke, so let's dismiss that. And it was pretty much the most advanced teleportation technology that we ever seen in all of Star Trek, except maybe for the Q and beings like that who can appear anywhere they want. But beside that, only the Iconians had that kind of technology. Other alien species had the ability to teleport very long range, but not as much and not as instantly as the Iconians. And I remember when I watched the third episode of Star Trek Discovery and I saw the spores and that the spores are apparently able to teleport you instantly anywhere, I immediately thought about the Iconians, and one problem that it creates is continuity-wise. It's a bit ridiculous because, Picard was so amazed seeing the gateway, and yet Starfleet itself developed that kind of technology a century earlier, so that kind of doesn't compute. I mean, Wesley said it sounds like magic when he talked about it with Picard. And so it doesn't make sense, so that's something that annoyed me. Now, if it's all classified, maybe I could buy it. It still would annoy me that a normal human, just a regular human, invented this kind of level of technology when no other species except the Iconians, almost no other species developed that kind of stuff. So that also kind of pissed me off. And in my reviews I said one of the things they could have used to justify it is if they actually said that they are using an Iconian technology which they found and they cannot duplicate, but they are able to use it to do this kind of stuff. And then this technology will be lost by the end of the show, and then there won't be a problem. No one else would be able to duplicate this kind of technology because it's just so advanced. And yet they show that not only the Discovery has this ability, but it also had the sister ship with the same kind of engine, and also in the Mirror Universe they had the same kind of technology. And it would require a lot of mental gymnastics to really fix all of this, which I might do for fun, because I love doing stuff like that. So I think the best way is still to tie it with the Iconian technology. We can still say the Iconians were using the same spore network. It would make sense, because otherwise, if this exists in the whole galaxy, how come no one else ever found it, ever used it? But if we say that maybe that's what the Iconians were using, and that there will be some kind of justified reason for why Starfleet will stop it, maybe outlaw it, maybe it's too dangerous for whatever reason, maybe it's a risk to the whole galaxy, kind of like the Omega particle, which was also highly classified, and Starfleet was given commands to destroy it whenever they find it, because it's just so dangerous to space itself. So maybe if we have that kind of explanation, then it would justify this continuity problem, because we can say, okay, Starfleet had a very good reason not to pursue this technology and to prevent anyone else from doing that. And of course we know Starfleet didn't have this kind of technology later, because Voyager was stuck in the other side of the galaxy and no one ever even mentioned the possibility of using the spores. So the Iconians are actually the closest kind of stuff to this level of teleportation. And so I actually think it would be a good idea to tie it together if done right. My fear is that if they do it, they'll probably mess it up and it will be even more complicated. So I'm going to talk about my ideas on how to do it properly in a way that would satisfy me. And I am willing to accept the idea that the Iconians were also using the spore technology to do their teleportation. When we first saw their gate room, we saw that it has a large sphere in the middle with some kind of blue lights. Then when they activated it, it fired blue lightning, which activated some panels on the wall with again with the blue energy. and then the gateway was opened, and as you see in the side of the gate, it does look kind of like the spores. And so visually it does fit with what was shown on Discovery. Now the fact that it's a gateway doesn't really fit, and originally I always assumed that they were actually folding space, that this is actually a very tight wormhole with zero travel time, that this is literally like a doorway in which space is folded. And I do think that's a more neat idea in a way, but it's also not really that realistic. I mean, would they really like bend the whole universe just to put these points together? And also when we saw Worf and Data go out of it on the other side, we actually saw that the doorway is not visible from the other side, meaning it's not really an open wormhole from both ends. And so that makes me think that this is not really a fold space scenario. This is not really a wormhole, and this is more of a teleportation, because it's not visible from the other side until the person appears, until the person steps out. And so maybe the doorway we see from the Iconian gate room is actually some kind of hologram simulation to show the traveler what is on the other side before he actually steps there. So this is not a literal doorway through some highly advanced wormhole, fold space kind of thing. And so because of all of this, I'm willing to accept that this might be based on the spore technology. Also in the middle of the room we see this sphere with the blue lights also. And also the blue lightning, again, it's similar to the effect of the spore drive, because whenever we see them use it, and when we saw the tardigrade using it, it was always with blue lightning all over the place. And so it kind of fits what we saw in the Iconian episode. And so I actually do think it's a good idea to say that the Iconians were also using the spores to travel. Maybe they could also teleport their ships, and not just individuals. That would also explain how they were such a powerful empire. And it's kind of debatable were they actually an empire or were they just misunderstood, because Picard said that he thinks that they were not really conquerors, maybe they were peaceful, and because other species were simply afraid of them, that's why they destroyed them. Which is an interesting theory, which also fits kind of the spirit of Star Trek, of the early shows, which was always a more optimistic version of the future. And so a lot of the aliens who appear to be bad, they are not actually bad, and so I love that idea in Star Trek. It's a rare idea in science fiction, because usually it's all, you know, the worst possible scenario, and yet in Star Trek, oftentimes it was a more enlightened approach and more positive approach. And so according to Picard, the Iconians were not actually the bad guys. And even Data said that everything in that room didn't seem like it's a military installation. And so I like that. So if we see the Iconians, I would like that element to still remain, that I want to see at least some of the Iconians to be good. Not all of them should be bad, in my opinion. And I always wanted to see the Iconians in Star Trek. They had a very interesting backstory, and they were mysterious. I always wanted to see more of them, and we never got it. So if we get it in this show, if they do it right, I would love it. The problem again is with continuity, because Picard didn't know that anyone met them before from Starfleet. He thinks they are a totally extinct species, and no one knew where their planet is until he found it. And I think it would have been better to do a story about them in a sequel series and not in a prequel, because the prequel creates the problem of how come Picard didn't know that anyone met them before. And also interesting that in one of the episodes of Discovery, we see on the screen, we see a map in which Iconia is shown, which is again a continuity problem, because no one knew where their planet is until Picard found it. So maybe what they show on the screen is the presumed location based on the space legends from eons ago and stuff like that. And they can even tie it with the whole spore network thing, and that would make sense. And they should give an explanation for why this technology cannot be used for some reason. Maybe they can reveal that using the spores actually damages subspace. Maybe it disrupts the ability of other species to use normal warp engines. Maybe that was the reason that there was an alliance of other species which destroyed the Iconians. Maybe because they considered using this kind of technology as very dangerous, and this would explain why Starfleet will abandon this technology as well, while they will classify it. It should be revealed that it poses some kind of danger to space itself, and it will also explain why this new threat will arise in Season 2. This whole plot with the red angels and the red signals. What a coincidence that it all showed up right after Discovery started using the spore drive, so maybe it should be connected, because it would explain the reappearance of those beings, whatever they are. I guess evil Iconians maybe, or something. The whole red angel thing, I'll get to that in a second. So maybe it will be revealed that because Discovery started using this technology again, that provoked that threat again to emerge, and so that's why they might give up the spore drive later. And as for the Red Angel, a lot of people claiming that this is an Iconian because we saw an Iconian in the Star Trek Online game, and it did look kind of similar to the vague figure we see as the Red Angel, and so a lot of people are claiming that this is an Iconian. And the question I have is, well, is it really a good one or an evil one? Because it would be kind of silly if everybody thinks it's good and it's really good. Maybe it will be an interesting twist that everybody thinks that's a good being and actually it's evil. So maybe it's an evil Iconian. Maybe some of the Iconians were actually bad. Maybe they really were an empire and other Iconians were good, and maybe there was a civil war between the Iconians. And also in that episode in TNG about the Iconians, it was stated by Picard that maybe the Iconians didn't really die, maybe they used the gateways to escape somewhere else, and so they're not really extinct, and so maybe because Discovery started using the same kind of technology, maybe it allowed them to open a gateway from the other side back to this galaxy. Maybe they got stuck somewhere else in another galaxy or another dimension. A parallel universe, maybe they were unable to go back, but after Discovery started using the same kind of technology, maybe it allowed them to go back into our galaxy, and maybe that's the threat that is being talked about in season 2. Maybe the bad Iconians want to come back and reconquer the galaxy, and maybe this is what will force them to shut off the Spore network. Maybe they'll do something that would make it impossible to access, as a way to protect the galaxy, basically, which would explain why they don't use this technology again later. The Spore drive should somehow be limited, but not completely, meaning because we saw those gateways actually working in the future, Picard was able to activate the gate, and also in Deep Space Nine we saw a gate being activated, so we cannot do something like destroying the Spore network. If we tie it together, if we say that the Iconian technology was based on the same spores, we cannot now simply destroy all the spores or make them inaccessible. Also, I think it would be kind of stupid to introduce something that big. I mean, they say that it spans across the whole cosmos, not even just in our galaxy. They say that the spores are all over the universe, that they are the progenitor of all life and stuff like that. So this is something very big, very epic, so it would be very silly to introduce something like that and then to totally destroy it. So I don't like the idea that the spores are simply destroyed in the end of the show. And so I really hope they don't mess it all up even more. I hope they will fix it all up, they will tie all the loose ends together. And so I don't want to simply, cancel the show and dismiss it from memory and just disregard it completely. I would actually want the show to become good and for all the things in it to actually make sense and to tie properly, which would be very hard, I admit, but I guess it's possible. And I personally love making these types of videos, nitpicking and coming up with excuses to science fiction problems. That's always fun for me to do, and hopefully it's fun to listen to. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.